Welcome to Creative Capitalists. I'm Keith Hayes. This is Cheyenne Cobb, and she is my guest today. My goal in doing this interview is to educate our clients and educate the public abroad about partners and folks in the community that are having a significant impact that we want to associate with and we want to encourage and promote. And so I'm looking forward to talking with Cheyenne here and sharing that with you today. There are so many things that we have an opportunity to talk about, and so here we go. Tell us about yourself, where you're from, and a little bit more about your background.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Cheyenne. I also go by Shay. I was born and raised in San Diego, California. I grew up there with my mom and my 3 siblings in a small trailer park in kind of like central San Diego area.
Okay.
My mom, Jenni, passed away in 2015. So this was the summer right before my senior year of high school. And during my senior year of high school, I was in a program called AVID. It's called Advancement via Individual Determination. And
Okay.
it was like a pivotal program for me in high school. It's kind of where I learned how to write scholarships. They helped me write my resume and, get my first job at Sioux Plantation in high school. And during that time was when I was kind of like applying for colleges. So after I graduated high school, I went to UCLA with about $70,000 in private scholarships.
Okay.
And I was there from 2016 to 2020. So I graduated in the pandemic with a bachelor's in communications and a bachelor's in Spanish.
Okay. Got it. And you had mentioned the program that you were involved in high school. How did that come to be? What was that? How did that get started?
Yeah, so the program was like part of the curriculum. At my high school, we were divided up into 4 schools. So I was in the School of International Business, which later became renamed to the School of College Connections because it was so popular for the specific AVID teacher we had there, who kind of was known for getting high percentages of her seniors into college. So I had been in this class from freshman year up until senior year. We learned how to take notes. It was part of our grade every month to submit a scholarship. So I was doing essays and art scholarships like every month as part of my grade.
Okay.
But just like taking them seriously and sometimes submitting like up to 4. They taught us like binder and organization skills. They taught us college preparation and everything. So starting like first or two months into our junior year of high school, we were already like writing our college essays, refining it all of junior year, and then having all of our materials ready to go by like the time we were seniors. So it was pretty much like a preparation, life development, college class for
And that was all lead into UCLA.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I got to UCLA. If I was not in AVID, I wouldn't have got to UCLA.
Interesting.
Yeah.
A lot of prep there. So then, even at UCLA, what stands out to you about that experience? What was your experience there? I mean, just in terms of your own studies.
Yeah, my experience at UCLA was pretty unique. So going into UCLA, I was 17 years old, and I didn't know it at the time, but I was severely struggling with my mental health. So my mom had passed about 12 months before I got to UCLA.
Okay.
And I was battling with post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, and anxiety. And then while I got to UCLA, I did have all the private scholarships that I won through AVID. However, most of that got reduced due to UC guidelines and things of that nature. So I was having to work about 55, 60 hours a week on top of going to UCLA full time. So
that's 40 units plus work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was pretty challenging. I would say it wasn't like most people I think get the kind of fun college experience, partying and making social groups and joining Greek clubs and all these things. And unfortunately, I just didn't have that privilege, I'd call it. Pretty much I would have to stack all my classes on 2 days and then work all other 5 days of the week and still get my coursework done.
Okay.
But the best thing about UCLA was the Bruin Guardian Scholars Program, which was the program I was a part of that's for undergraduate and graduate students who are former foster youth or who have experienced the foster care system. So that's kind of where I found my main community. I walked out of UCLA with 3 friends and they were all from that program. So it was essential for me. Anytime I still have the Tempur-Pedic pillows that they gave me when I was in college. I had a lot of support when I was there. We did financial workshops. We did networking events. Like, we got a lot of resources and opportunities to
And
build.
that was all through Guardians?
All through Guardian Scholars. It was pretty much like what kept me alive, I would say, at UCLA was the Guardian Scholars program.
Yeah, that bonding. And then that was a program that was already in existence there. Do you know how that kind of came into be, or how that started at UCLA? Or
I'm not sure how it started. I know Guardian Scholars programs are pretty, like, they have them at most universities and sometimes even community colleges here in Los Angeles and all across the nation, actually. It just so happens that the UCLA Bruin Guardian Scholars is like the top ranked Guardian Scholars program because of funding. They have a significant amount of funding due to like private philanthropists and sponsors who really believe in it, because LA has the highest concentrated population of foster youth. And so, yeah, I know that like across the nation though, it's pretty popular. Like USC has the Trojan Guardian Scholars.
They do.
Yeah, so like they're kind of all over.
Multi-territory.
Yeah.
But that's awesome. That seems like that's a significant part to your college experience there too. So can you go ahead and introduce the story of Jenni's Flower and how that got started?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
So while I was at UCLA, like I was saying, the Bruin Guardian Scholars was kind of like a pivotal group and community for me. I didn't even know I was a foster youth until I got to UCLA. Because the way my kind of story started, when my mom passed away, I was 16. My siblings were 15, 19, and 21. And
that's what I found interesting about your story there.
Yeah, we were all really, really young. So my older sister, who was 21 at the time, ended up filing for guardianship, but there was kind of this like brief intermittent period where we were what you would call wards of the court, my younger sister and I, because we were under 18. And so through that status, and then even through becoming a guardian in a guardianship, that technically is, a foster youth trajectory or an identity that fits under the foster youth umbrella. Yeah. So when I got to UCLA and I found out I even qualified, I was kind of like shocked, because I was like, oh, like I can't claim this. I've never been in a group home or a foster care home. And it wasn't until I had that community and the BGS director kind of explain to me that, emancipation, kinship, guardianship, ward of the court, group home, foster care home, adoption, like
these are checking the boxes.
These are all different types of identities for a foster youth. So you absolutely qualify. Look at, she was like, I think she said something along the lines of like, I don't mean to be blunt, but like, look at your circumstances. You're 17 going to UCLA and you have no parents, you have no support, you got yourself here completely funded by scholarships you were awarded. Like, I, of anyone, think you should really lean into this identity, because the hardships you're about to face are going to become very real. And it was like kind of like a wake-up call for me. And so while I was at UCLA and I was like going to the Bruin Guardian Scholars meetings, it was really important for me to start learning how much these community members resonated with me and how much I resonated with them. And I'd always had this like thought in the back of my mind where I was like, I feel very fortunate that while I do have this foster youth story, I had my mom for 16 years, who was one of the most like compassionate, bright, soulful, empathetic women I'd ever met. And like anyone who knew her kind of had this same understanding of her. And I was like, I wish that more people in the world could experience that.
You're like bridging two communities together. So yeah, that makes it very unique for you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it was like, I was just like, how can I carry on her name and her legacy and her light and provide some of that to my community members? And so I think I have notes in my phone from like 2017, 2018, 2019, where I'm just writing like Jenni's project, or I think one time I wrote Jenni's legacy. And I was just kind of always just like writing these random names, but I never really knew what it was or what it was going to be, or like what this project was. I just knew I had to create something in my mom's name.
You were seeing something.
Yeah, it was like a vision, kind of like a flash. Like I didn't really know exactly what it meant. And then in 2020, I was kind of meeting up with some mentors of mine who had connected with me through scholarships that they gave me.
Okay.
And I was like learning more about the nonprofit world and what kind of like impact could be made there. And that's kind of how it was birthed, was through this meeting with my mentor and kind of pitching him my vision on like, I really want to create community spaces. I want to be able to provide like entrepreneurship for other foster youth. Like what ways can I help that are outside of just mentorship and career, but
Yeah.
like
Starting something fresh or initiating on your own, being able to kind of carve your own path. I
yeah,
mean,
exactly. And so once we kind of had that meeting, you know, the name Jenny's Flower was created like 2 weeks later. And I was like, my mom's favorite flower was a sunflower. And I felt like that was a really like perfect emblem of her light, her compassion, and kind of everything I wanted to like instill into like the impact I was hoping to make. And that's kind of how it was birthed, was in 2021 with like the idea and the kind of name and the vision for it. And then April of 2022 was when it was kind of like started and kind of created, with our very first ever event being the Foster Youth Flea Market, which happened in May of 2022.
awesome. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that stands out to me in first meeting you and hearing you explain more is just knowing that the initiative that you took and just basically making it happen by actually just taking action, just taking action and actually doing something about it. You know, a lot of people in life, they can't take initiative or see something, and I see that in you. So
Yeah, thank you. No, I know. I was like talking to my mentors a lot, and I was like, should I go back to school and get like a degree in nonprofit management, or should I go get a business degree? And they were like, just learn by doing. Like just start. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And it's proved fruitful.
Pound the pavement,
Yeah.
I mean, in business school, I was always talking about affecting things, just using what you had, your own resources to do something.
Yeah.
Can you highlight some accomplishments that occurred for you guys in 2023 with Jenny's Flower?
Yeah, absolutely. So 2022 was like our first kind of year established, getting the 501c3 filing, hosting our first event, starting to like kind of go out in the community. And 2023 was kind of like our first real year of like impact and creating programs and of serving. And so in 2023, I would say some of the biggest highlights and accomplishments were hosting 5 foster youth flea markets. So we were able to go out into the community at some of our different community host sites, like coffee shops and venues in South Central, and really be able to create these community spaces and events such as the Foster Youth Flea Market, where we had 25 different foster youth entrepreneurs throughout the course of the year who were able to come set up their booths. At every flea market, we provide free tables, free chairs, free tablecloths, free flower decorations, and we also sponsor them with gift cards so that they can buy supplies and materials that they might need for their booths, such as display cases for their jewelry or candle wax to help them make candles. And that was kind of like one of the highlights for me, was seeing these 25 entrepreneurs, some of whom participated in all 5, some of whom participated in their first one throughout the year, and just getting to like see the growth in each and every one of them, and honestly getting to see them make a profit and walk away, go home with money in their pockets.
They earned something, they represented themselves in something, they presented, meaning a brand. I mean, incredible. A lot of people in business even can't even get that far as much as they think, That's interesting. How did you end up leading up to even just getting the first 25? What grew from the time that you were at UCLA and had connected with 3 other peers, or having at least 3 close friends, to being 25? Like, what was that leap like?
It's crazy you say that, because that's actually like the exact connection. Was the first entrepreneur I ever met was she was in the Guardian Scholars program with me. And I stayed connected with her on social media, and I saw that like during the pandemic, she was starting to make these like clay jewelry earrings. And I was like, wow, this is so cool. Like, they were beautiful. I thought they were I was like, these deserve to be like in a store. And so she was the first person I ever actually reached out to say, hey, like, I have this idea to host like a flea market.
Is that the one with the butterflies?
Yes, yes. Jacqueline Grace Designs. So I hit her up and I was like, would you like be a part of this flea market? And she was like, oh my God, I'd love to. And that's kind of how I got the idea to even sponsor tables and chairs, was because through that communication, she had mentioned to me, she's like, I don't have a table or chairs though. And I was like, cool, if I bring them, will you come? And she was like, yeah. And so from there, she kind of started like posting it. I created a flyer. I started emailing everyone I had ever met from all my foster youth advocacy, from Bruin Guardian Scholars to organizations to individuals I had on social media. And so the first year in 2022, it was about 13 vendors, most of which I didn't actually know until that day. So they had found me through social media, through emails, One thing I love about the nonprofit world is like, if there's a flyer, like it's gonna get out and like people are gonna send it.
It's just a matter of
yeah.
Yeah.
And it'll
What a
go
delight.
far.
So meaning your expectations, I mean, it doesn't matter almost what you expected, I guess, at the time, but you started off just from that and you had 13 the first round.
Yeah.
And then you more than doubled.
Yeah.
Or doubled.
Exactly. Okay. And some of those vendors stayed and they participated in all, like I said, all 5 of those. Okay. Some of them started recruiting their friends, more social media engagement, more people reposting the flyer, sharing it, kind of finding us really through like outreach from community partners and like other foster youth advocacy organizations.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know you mentioned community partners, which I want to ask you more about. Very cool. Okay. Based on all those accomplishments, even in the last year alone, what have been some of the barriers and challenges, risks, issues? What's been happening, during this first couple of years, starting a nonprofit at the age of 23?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I think for me, one of the initial like barriers and kind of challenges I faced when starting it at 23 was kind of barriers to access. So not really knowing exactly what it entailed to file a 501c3 documents and to file
to create basically a charity from scratch. Okay.
Like the entity formation, all of the kind of like legal stuff and documents and paperwork that it would ensure we were in good standing and that we were legal to, do business and to operate and make impact. And kind of after we, got that figured out and we were on solid foundation for that through a lot of amazing mentors and guides of mine, kind of like stepped up to the next level where it's like a whole new set of problems, which is, good problems, like they say, like as you level up, it's you're going to have more problems, but you'll be able to remember where you were before and be like, oh, I'd rather have these problems than those problems.
That's right.
But the main one from like, last year and even the beginning of this year has really been funding. So kind of like learning, the ins and outs of like what it really takes to get a nonprofit to a sustainable financial point. Learning, different avenues for funding, like fundraising and donations and grant writing, and kind of really having the challenge of not having necessarily a background in any of that and having to like learn it from scratch. That's kind of been like the biggest challenge so far is.
Yeah, I mean, did you kind of, as soon as you had some momentum, even just on the foster youth market, knowing that like you created, 5 repeat events and you had 25 participants, did a budget appear in your brain where you're kind of like, I need X amount of fuel to get to where I see it now?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Kind of on that, one of the biggest support systems and kind of ways I've been able to like tackle these barriers and challenges head on has been one of the most amazing like resources I've been able to tap into, Allen Connect You, and kind of being able to lean on the hub at Allen Connect You and the resources and the mentorship and the guidance to kind of teach me things like a fund development strategy, which was something I spent about 6 months working on, a 25-page document, laying out like, when you have a big vision and you're like a big visionary, but maybe like, myself, I don't come from any family members who've ever done something like this. I come from poverty, so like sometimes I even have a hard time thinking beyond, a certain amount of money.
Yeah.
It was hard to
timeline and
like, I'm like, oh,
sustain
10,000, and through this kind of like collaboration and guidance and mentorship at Allen Connect You, I was able to like see like, oh no, like this vision I have for, a 10-year span of period, what does this really cost? And really starting to be able to think through like the millions that it takes and the team that you have to build out and kind of like all of the inner workings of it that are truly like necessary for it to come to fruition.
Yeah. By then, did you already have a board or?
Yes.
You did. Okay.
Yes. So the board was established in 2022.
I mean, the fact that you mentioned you had mentors, I mean, a lot of people go through life with no mentors. So
it's kind of necessary as a foster youth. Like I feel like I wouldn't be who I am today, right? I don't have parents, so a lot of the people I have to lean on for
you gravitated to
things people would typically like call up mom and dad for. I'm like, okay, which mentor in my Rolodex?
I was going to say, like, do you want to take a second to highlight any of those individuals or speak to that, just the significance of having that first, or second person that kind of help influence your
Oh yeah, absolutely. I know.
Yeah, desire.
Like I mentioned earlier, the kind of whole filing paperwork and getting all of that done, that was done through one of my mentors, Paul Bergman, who's the treasurer of our board, and kind of that was like pivotal for us to get that support. And I remember one day he put me on a train to San Diego and I thought it was just a regular meeting, and he pulls out like a binder, and then there's my 501c3 filing, and
Wow.
I'm in tears. And so like people like Paul, Pam Marcheski, who's our board president, who's kind of taught me a lot about mindful leadership, executive experience, and helped develop the mindfulness curriculum that we kind of utilize through our programs and resources. People like Joey Aline at Allen Connect
Yeah,
You.
that's what I was gonna.
Joey's been amazing. He's been an incredible resource and an incredible kind of guide through, like, I would say, like a holistic sense of support. What he's doing at Allen Connect You and the support, for example, like through Allen Connect You, we're able to have a brick and mortar office space in downtown Los Angeles, where not only now do we have like a brick and mortar space and an office, but we have access to conference rooms and board rooms and venues that we can utilize to host workshops, which we've already done. We've hosted donation giveaways there. We've hosted product photography workshops there for some flea market vendors to get photos for their website.
So I mean, right off the bat, you've talked about going from basically working as yourself with your own single effort to leaning on two mentors. One helps with formation, another helps with your first program, and then you have Joey come alongside you with infrastructure. So you're already a team of four. I mean, in a way, you can look at.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so I think through them, I've been able to kind of like work through every barrier and every challenge, whether it like be small ones, right? Like things with youth and figuring out what services we might need to additionally provide or what referrals we might need to add. And it's been like monumental in kind of my ability to also step into like the executive leadership role, and also to like keep the organization afloat, because you know I'm battling imposter syndrome and I'm battling being the first one in my family to do something like this. So it's definitely been critical, and it's been rough, but it's also been so like fruitful and impactful and life-changing.
What's your biggest challenge today?
I would say still funding, still kind of, you know, having enough significant financial support to run the programs that we have, to match the budgets that we've created for, you know, our operations as well as our programs and our services.
There's nuances to how you raise funding and what kind of grants you qualify for. But it sounds like you had mentioned before we started that you've started to develop relationships too with specific parties that can help provides pools of funding or sources of funding. Yeah, that's what we're really trying to do now, is like build those authentic, genuine relationships and create those partnerships that can really be monumental for us to continue growing and to continue like elevating and to continue just keeping on, because at the end of the day, you know, like I was mentioning earlier, like with grant writing and grant funding, there's a lot of restrictions and a lot of barriers, which while we qualify for some, we don't necessarily qualify for others, whether that be not being in existence for 5 years, not already having a $2 million expense budget, not having, you know, just certain hurdles basically that you've got to.
Exactly. So through the fundraising platform as well, I mean, we know the kind of economy we're living in right now, and kind of being able to raise the significant funds that we need through fundraising is also not the most viable option, because unfortunately, it's hard to yield that kind of giving right now. Yeah. So, and that's one thing I'll mention here too, is that one thing that brought Cheyenne and myself together is that through Joey, Aline, and Aline Connect You, you know, part of my inspiration was, you know, having consulted for a tax practice where we have 1,000 clients, you know, I tend to see where we have activity, charitable activity, and the significance of that. And what's key is, you know, most people want to give locally and give to people that they know can have a significant impact. And so, you know, I basically said, hey, Joey, you know, we got to use this thing called a donor advised fund. It's just one thing in a tool set, but we have ways that we can go out and collectively raise support from people who really care. But we need to spend that time developing that, and of course, taking the moment here to chat about it so that we can turn around and educate many people at once, because picking up the phone call and calling each of one of you and spending an hour at lunch or dinner as possible, it just takes a lot. So can you give us a story about someone that's been positively impacted by the program so far? Share, you know, give us the story. I think for me, there's one youth that really stands out who I feel like is a great representation of what we hope to do at Jenni's Flower and kind of like how important and powerful the impact is. This youth was one of the first ever youth at the original Foster Youth Flea Market in 2022. That day, they actually sold out.
All product.
All product.
Okay.
She makes candles, homemade candles. Her story is monumental and kind of like how COVID impacted her to start making these candles during COVID and kind of like why she was making these candles in relation to her experiences in foster care. And from that market in 2022 all the way to 2023, we just stayed in contact. You know, she was always expressive of how like appreciative she was of that day. And then she participated in all 5 of our flea markets last year. She's been the highest grossing foster youth entrepreneur at the Foster Youth Flea Market, taking home about $850 one day, which I remember her voicing to me that helped so much with bills that month.
We're talking,
That's in LA.
basic core expenses.
That's
big,
extensive.
Big feat, everyone, for anyone who's not in Los Angeles.
And then just kind of being able to see her business and her growth development. I mean, when she started in May of 2022, she came just with boxes of her product and had a black tablecloth chair and table that we provided. To now she's got a whole setup with like a canopy. She's got lights. She's got plants. She at the last flea market started expanding into, oh my God, I might actually cry talking about it.
It's okay. Of all the vendors, I mean, I told you that I missed that last one.
Yeah.
And I wanted to place an order. So if this is official enough, please help me. I'll place an order.
No, absolutely. Yeah. She sells online too. She's expanded into e-commerce, but yeah, now she's like, she was doing a candle making workshop at the last flea market. Like, talking, now she's got 3 tables. She's got like tiers where she puts, not tiers, but these like kind of like dresser type things that she brings with her. Like her setup, her getup is just expanded so much. She's reinvested the money that she made into continuing to like build her business booth. She's has a website now that she also invested in and pays monthly for. Does her social media marketing incredible. And we were able to also bring her on. We were on KTLA recently and she was able to be featured there, which you know, a rush of orders came in as well. Her website was sold out for a couple weeks.
Awesome.
And yeah, we've been able to do like fundraisers for her on Instagram, yielding about $650 worth of donations to support candle wax and like some of the scents that she needs to buy for the candles. So I think that to me is one of the biggest stories of impact, because from May of 2022 to where she is now, it's just like, it's
a night and day difference.
Yeah.
And then it seems like, this is evident, but basically the Foster Youth Market, FYM, if I could call it that.
FYFM, Foster Youth Flea
FYFM, FYFM, to get that right. But that basically became a way for her to scale. And then with the blessing of even your recent press, you're just talking a multiplier effect or multiplier effect. Is what I meant to say.
Absolutely. Yeah. For most of our vendors, what I'm noticing is they'll take the scholarships that we give them for gift cards to purchase supplies and equipment on Amazon, and most of them are investing in things that they can not only use for the Foster Youth Flea Market, but use for other outside local markets. Some of them have bought wagons. Some of them have bought reusable like display cases. And then now some of them are going on and they're going to other local vending experiences in LA, and they are having their tables and their booths, and they're just growing and scaling just even more outside of the Foster Youth Flea Market.
It's incredible. You know, one of the things that's important in the work that I do in both the financial planning practice and working on the tax side is everything is about growth. You know, we all want to grow in life. And what's remarkable is to listen to Cheyenne explain about how we have individuals who have found themselves in places of adversity where life has not given them just kind of like a blank check of resource. And yet with wholehearted effort, with focus, I mean, you're looking at starting a business from scratch, which is a significant American accomplishment here. So awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Cool. So based on what you've shared, Cheyenne, you know, we've basically we have a baby charity that has blossomed into something that we know has a board of directors, we know has some volunteers, we know we have not even just, you haven't had a chance to mention all the programming that you're doing, but we know that that's the foster youth flea market is just one aspect of that. So with that said, we know all organizations have people that they're helping, and those people traditionally in a business, you pay, right? But in your case, since you're basically running a charity, you have supporters. So with that, could you just kind of comment again on the types of sources of support you have and what your ideal sources are that you would like to have?
So right now, our main kind of sources of support have been through community partners, like going out and really tapping into the network that I've built over the past 7-8 years.
Is that a charity sponsor?
Yes.
Can
so
you
like
share with the audience a little bit about what that is?
Just going out to like other foster youth advocacy organizations, other organizations that are supporting the same demographic of youth, maybe with different services or programs.
Okay.
Going out to for-profit businesses as well that like believe in our mission and that have kind of built that authentic relationship with us to really keep building and growing and collaborating in like in a communal way. So that's been one of our main kind of sources of support, whether that be, through in-kind donations or donation matching to some of the line items or budgets that we have for our different programs. We also have been able to receive a little bit of grants so far. So we've gotten some grants from some different foundations as well as kind of like smaller scale offerings that have allowed us to kind of continue like operational support and allowed us to continue running the market. And then we've been able to do a little bit of fundraising, not as much as we would like to yield, but we've been able to do some in-person fundraising as well as fundraising through platforms like Give Butter and Instagram and social media, as well as kind of like email campaigns and kind of gaining support and gaining authentic partnerships
expanding your base there. And that last part is of those that donate to you individually?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. That's been a huge support as well, right? Like if I'm coming from a full cup, then I can pour, and I'm not coming to pour from an empty cup. So that's also been one incredible way as well. If sponsors or different donors have been able to kind of like come support me as well so that I can continue doing the work. As far as the kind of sources of support that we are really looking for, those authentic and genuine relationships with major donors, with recurring donors that are able to help us monthly on a basis of supporting our operations, on supporting kind of the costs, for our office space so that we're able to continue hosting workshops and continue giving youth entrepreneurs a space as well to work out of and to grow and expand their mindsets
and
their
that allows
businesses.
for continuity, sustainability,
Oh, absolutely.
long-term impact. If you're talking about developing people to be able to look out 3, 5, 10 years.
Exactly. Recurring donations for the flea market so that we can have support for the tables and the chairs and the tablecloths. Recurring donors that can help us really scale up our somatic practices component of the organization, which really aims to provide that physical exercise for transition age foster youth to heal from trauma and to be able to access things like yoga and Pilates and boxing and dancing. Rock climbing. I mean, these are things
it's good for all of us.
It's essential for mental health, emotional health, physical health, and it's one of the things we haven't been able to do as much of right now because of the limited funding and kind of like being able to have those major donors that can really come in and step up and help us grow that up so that we can provide scholarships and sponsorships for youth to have monthly gym memberships and have access to experiences like rock climbing and running clubs and Pilates, which most of them have never tried before.
To commit to those things that some of us that come from families that maybe have more resources, we're used to those things. You mentioned when you're talking about support, you mentioned service areas. Can you speak about what that is, how that ties into Los Angeles?
One of the major components of kind of our vision and our mission with Jenni's Flower is to really be able to support all of the different transition age foster youth through the different service planning areas. And what service planning areas is they're geographical regions in Los Angeles that kind of help facilitate the organization of public health and social services. And if you kind of look at it on a map, it's kind of got color-coded coordinated areas of Los Angeles that make up these different 8 service planning areas. And it's really vital and essential because, as we know, Los Angeles is huge. It's a big county, and it's got so many different cities and hubs and small areas within it. And because of that, that means that there's just even more ways to impact, and even more kind of like small areas where we've got foster youth concentrated and kind of condensed into small different parts. Some
certain
spanning
communities where it's more common.
Exactly, spanning from like South Bay all the way out to like Pasadena, right? And so it's not always ideal, especially with barriers for foster youth such as transportation. A lot of foster youth don't drive or have access to learn how to drive, get their driver's license, and you know, maybe if they live in Pasadena, they can't make it all the way out to like something we might have in, you know, Mid-City or West Hollywood or something. And so part of what one of our really, you know, big visions and goals is to be able to utilize that map and utilize those geographic regions to be able to serve those youth in those areas as best as we can, with things spanning from partnerships we've made with, you know, therapy and mental health facilities that are able to do virtual services and in-person services with our seeds, as we call them, to really be able to like help tackle that, as well as when we think about kind of expanding those somatic practices, what might that look like to be able to provide access in each of these different regions and build partnerships with organizations in each of those
through
regions.
the work and programming that you've started, you're helping basically bridge the dots between other organizations and expanding both engagement and reach. Basically.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And being able to meet youth where they are at, you know, with a lot of the housing insecurities and housing instabilities that they'll face, the transportation piece I touched on, food insecurity, all these different barriers that kind of make it so that there's really no one size fits all way to serve transition age foster youth, but rather how can we serve them in the areas that they're at and provide resources that make sense and that are productive and essential to where they are currently at physically as well as emotionally and mentally.
Got it. Okay, cool. So I mean, what that means is that kind of boils down to having sustainable forms of capital, right, to kind of align and match up, so that if you're initiating a program here, you're not looking at, I mean, you're of course breaking this stuff down into what we're calling earlier, but basically, you know, smaller short-term projects. But the idea is to make the utility of that align or be, I mean, just match up to what each seed needs, so that you can meet them kind of in their place, and that they're not trekking all the way across LA and back just for a couple hours and having to spend half a day to do that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Got it. So one of the things you mentioned about funding was attracting capital from large donors, and then also doing some additional fundraising, right? Which touches on, I guess it could just be donations, even match donations from everyday folks, folks that don't necessarily have a trust or something set up. So in terms of that, what would be, I guess, is there a certain kind of level of capital or program that you'd like to fundraise for, that you'd be looking for a certain amount of capital to achieve in 2024? That would help you get from where you're at right now to where you want to be at the end of the year?
I think ultimately for 2024 and in these next 12 months, our ultimate goal is definitely about $150,000 in capital to really be able to sustain the programs that we currently have and to be able to scale them up a bit, as well as to be able to really build the foundation for our additional programming, such as the somatic practices that we were talking about earlier and the community events and spaces that we hold. One thing we're really hoping to do in 2024 is to kind of expand on the entrepreneurship pathways that we provide through the Foster Youth Flea Market by providing a fellowship. So the Bloom Venture Fellowship is kind of the next thing down the pipeline that we're really hoping to create to really ensure that foster youth vendors, specifically from the Foster Youth Flea Market, have access to these fellowships that would be around $10,000, as well as like a 12-month-long program that really gets them to start expanding, start scaling up, get
it's like
access.
A tool set.
Yeah,
Resources
exactly.
plus education.
Think of it kind of like an incubator is similar to what I think most people would envision. However, like you've probably heard and kind of seen from me, there's a lot of aspects that are things we haven't really done before or seen before in other incubators. So we really want to create this fellowship to, you know, one, give them that capital and give them that access, but as well to kind of really utilize, like I was talking about earlier, the service planning areas access to bring more business into those parts of Los Angeles, and for them to scale up and to grow and to expand, to learn all of the inner workings of what it means to be an entrepreneur, to grow products, to get access to mentors, as well as data collection and data research.
Perfect. So then out of the 150,000, say if you were to call that a budget or a fundraise for this year, would 50,000 of that help cover the ability to deliver that program to your current recipients plus additional seeds?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Right now, you know, we're still kind of developing like what this year looks like for us and kind of what we have capacity for given the current funds and kind of the fundraisers we have down the pipeline. And so having a donation of, like you said, 50,000, for example, would be a major contributor and support for us to be able to do the Bloom Venture Fellowship and to really get that off the ground.
Got it. And so then another out of that would be 50 out of 150. Would the other 100 go on to continue with like Foster Youth Flea Market, or how would you use that capital?
Oh yeah, absolutely. With the other 100,000, that would definitely help us with, you know, operational support, as well as kind of starting to build more upon the Foster Youth Flea Market and ensure that we have that funding to create the next, you know, flea markets for not just 2024, but 2025 as well, and to ensure that we have that foundation set up, that we've got all of that ready to go and it's solidified. It would also really help us to, like I said, expand within the Foster Youth Flea Market on creating those community spaces. So creating workshops, having food and transportation for those workshops, having the funding to be able to create new experiences like the rock climbing event that you were able to also show up and come to. So just really being able to kind of keep growing and building on the spaces that we've built and on the foundation that's already there to create that sustainability.
So that gives you kind of like a very well-rounded set of programming that all kind of, they feed off of each other basically.
Yeah.
And so then how many youth would you say you're currently serving now, and then how many would that allow you to serve this year, would you say?
Right
and
now,
by youth, I also mean that can also be young adults, right?
Yes. So youth for us does mean young adult. We serve ages 18 to 38. Most of which I would say it's probably around the 18 to 27 age range is kind of like our hot spot.
Okay.
But yeah, right now we're currently serving about 20 youth. And with funding like that, we'd probably be able to at least double that to start serving about 40 to 50 youth. Especially through the Foster Youth Flea Market and as well through kind of the somatic practices. We're really hoping to, like I said, launch those sponsorships for gym memberships and to get youth into the physical exercise space across the board in various practices.
Got it. So we're talking anywhere between 100 and 200 seeds? Is that?
Yeah, pretty much.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. Awesome. So one of the things I'd like to add on to this for those that are watching is, so through the consulting work that I do in the tax space, and then as well as running a financial planning and investment management practice, is that I have clients that want to know how to allocate capital. And that doesn't include, that of course includes, you know, where to grow retirement assets, trust assets, but also how to give, because, you know, there are large organizations that we know we can donate to, but as you know, there's not necessarily a close connection with that capital, right? Or even where it gets deployed. And so one thing that stands out to me about Cheyenne's organization is that in the city of Los Angeles, we have foster youth and young adults who are impacted by their environment here, right? They see and experience the same constraints that we do. And so one of the things that I'm excited about is the use of a donor advised fund is a simple vehicle that you as a taxpayer, as well as a firm like mine, can go ahead and use to fundraise. So one of the things that I'm pledging to do is to use that tool set to help support Cheyenne's organization. She has grown from one person to, you know, a group of, it sounds like at least 4 board members, is it?
Yes, 4 board members. We've, you know, about 20 volunteers and supporters, and
20 volunteers.
a network of over 100 people that have been believing in this mission since day one.
And then how many participants or seeds would be?
Since we began, we've served about 57.
57, got it. So with the use of these donor advised funds or additional even just direct donations, we know that we can take an organization, that's grown from 4 to, if you include volunteer effort, easily 25 people, let's say, and serving between 50 and 100 young adults to being able to expand and double that with incredible vision to grow that over the next few years to, it sounded like 10 times. So we're looking at a factor of growth of 10 times or 1,000%, right? And we all love that when we talk about investments. And so one opportunity we have here is to see how we can do that on a social level and also a business level too, because we actually have profits being made here, which is incredible. This is an opportunity for you to get in touch with us. As part of Creative Capitalists, I've started a donor advised fund, but if you have questions about how to do that for yourself, you can reach out to us. You can even reach out to Cheyenne and ask her about what their capital requirements are. But these are things that we're looking to bring to your table and give you an opportunity to impact people just outside your family in your own community.
If you also want to reach out to us directly, I'll put the website right here on the screen. It'll be www.jenniesflower.org. You can also reach out to us via email at Cheyenne, CHEYENNE, at jenniesflower.org. That's JENNIS flower.org. Or you can go ahead and follow us on Instagram, and that's going to be at jenniesflower.org. Any of these 3 different avenues are ways that you can go ahead and directly contact us. Through our website, you'll be able to donate directly. You can also see any of our Give Butter campaigns or fundraising that we're doing at the moment. And you can just go ahead and reach out to us. We're definitely open and looking forward to hearing from you.
Thanks, Cheyenne, so much for your time today. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Keith.
Yeah.